Welcome to Tianheng Technologies. The blue light coalesced into a palm-tall, soft-looking woman wearing a pink jumpsuit with perfect proportions. Lu Sheng waited for a while, but the usual enter the password message did not appear, making him relieved. How should I use it? Lu Sheng hesitated for a moment, but almost instantly, the blue beauty in front of him smiled and spoke. First-time users of the optical mind can operate according to given instructions and guidelines. Fortunately, there is a newbie guide. Lu Sheng breathed a sigh of relief. Soon, he mastered the operation method under the intelligent guidance of the device optical mind. Next, I'll have to slowly gain an understanding of this world. Lu Sheng took a light breath, thought about it, and issued a command. Help me search information and news on the most recent date. Connecting to Skynet. Connection failed. Connecting to base 1359. Civilian database. Connection successful. The next moment, Lu Sheng saw huge amounts of information swish past his eyes. When Lu Sheng's eyes rested on a text, the image immediately enlarged and the corresponding date presented itself to him. June 21, 11024 MC. The main base number 2 successfully launched the 58th batch of life exploration spacecraft, having locked to the coordination of a star system in the Lyra constellation. TL, MC, Martial Calendar July 12, 11024 MC, base 105 fell, September 24, 11024 MC. Lieutenant General Sun Kanghe was promoted to level 10 star realm martial artist, becoming the 472nd level 10 star realm powerhouse in the history of the World Martial Alliance. With a total of 23 level 10 star realm powerhouses currently in the World Martial Alliance, September 30, 11024 MC, base 114 and 893 fell. The World Martial Alliance will hold the 274th Patriarchal Conference at the main base 1, October 3, 11024 MC, base 585, 697, and 1253 fell. November 19, 11024 MC. Lu Sheng quickly browsed through the news presented to him by optical mind. All kinds of information kept hitting Lu Sheng's nerves. Level 10 powerhouse. Planetary migration plan, patriarchal meeting. As Lu Sheng expected, this world's martial civilization was much advanced than the one he lived in. They even had explored the level above the 9th and 10th level of the martial cultivation, the 11th level long ago. But even so, the most news Lu Sheng saw were that of the fall of the one martial arts base after another. This world's martial arts civilization is incomparably enlightened. They are at an unimaginable height. They face an even more terrifying enemy. Even martial arts of the 10th and 11th level can't guard the human race that is failing against the clutches of the foreign beasts. At the end, they even decided to abandon their home planet and start finding a suitable home in the stars. But from the news, Lu Sheng's eyes lowered, and the speed of the blue light that crossed in front of him slowed down. The exploratory ships that were launched with a particular mission did not return with any news even after base 1359 fell. Lu Sheng mourned for them. What he saw in the news message was helplessness and sorrow of a glorious civilization on its way towards extinction. Lu Sheng stopped reading through the news and related information and spoke, "Pull up information on world history." Information on world history is being retrieved. Information on world history retrieved successfully. Lu Sheng looked toward the newly slid out information. Year 1 MC, the northern part of the ancient Eagle Kingdom, the eastern and southern part of the ancient Lion Kingdom, the western part of the ancient Dragon Kingdom. Earth cracked and hordes of otherworldly creatures crawled out the chasm. When he read the first line of the world's history, Lu Sheng's brain seemed to be struck by a heavy hammer, and it shook more than once. Lu Sheng suspected that he had misread it and came closer to read word by word. Year 34 MC, the world's first martial artist with Qi was born in the ancient Dragon Kingdom, and the World Martial Alliance was formed contemporarily in the same year. Year 42 MC, martial cultivation system through classification was established. Mr. Yingqian of the ancient Dragon Kingdom became the first level 5 martial artist of the World Martial Alliance. Year 104 MC, Lu Sheng was lost, and he slumped to the ground. He was usually either calm, happy, or even angry when faced with situations, but this time his face was colored with utter disbelief and stupefaction. He looked through the first few hundred years of this world's history and found that they overlapped highly with what he had learned in his history class. The time, the historical figures, the historical events, they were ditto, exactly the same. The information on the years 310 to 315 even gave him an illusion as if he was flipping through newspapers of recent years. Lu Sheng finally got an unbelievable conclusion. This world, and the one he has been living in, were one and the same. The information he just flipped through was not any history of another world and its martial civilization, but it was the future of the world. 10,000 years into the future, year 11,024 MC, this will be the year when things go terribly wrong. That is to say, the world I'm living in now will go extinct with all intelligent life ceasing to exist in 10,000 years, perishing under the overwhelming assault of the black fog and the endless tides of foreign beasts. Lu Sheng's face turned pale. He couldn't accept this result. Just a minute ago, he was still expressing silent mourning for the demise of this powerful civilization. And a minute later, he realized that he was mourning for the future of his own civilization. It may not be the same, it may just be a coincidence, it may be a parallel world. Lu Sheng consoled himself and tried to calm himself down. He needed more facts to verify. Lu Sheng tried to zoom in on history, looking for clues from smaller traces. But at this time, the optical mind prompted, insufficient authority, visitor cannot access query. Lu Sheng frowned slightly and spoke, generate user ID. Please provide a genetic blood sample. The advanced technological invention, the optical mind, required a genetic blood samples to create a user ID. It was simply remarkable. Lu Sheng didn't know if it would work in the dream world, but he bit his index finger and dropped a drop of blood on the groove in the middle of the optical mind. After Lu Sheng dropped blood on it, the optical mind went silent for more than 10 minutes. When Lu Sheng was beginning to suspect if the thing was dead, the device finally issued a crisp drop sound. But it wasn't the prompt to notify the successful creation of a new user ID, but human genetic blood sample detected, Fireseed program initiated, connecting to Fireseed repository 1359, connection successful. Permission granted. The next moment, in front of Lu Sheng's eyes, a large message popped up. Name, Lu Sheng. Gender, male. Lifespan, 297 MC, June, 334 MC. Martial prowess, level 4 martial artist. Available authority, level 2. At the top of this message was a picture of himself. On the photo was a handsome-looking, stalwart middle-aged man with a face that Lu Sheng was incomparably familiar with. This person was none other than himself. Lu Sheng calmly continued to read down about his biography. Graduated from Beihai Third High School in Beihai City, enrolled in Beihai Martial Arts University, placing first in the school and the 23rd place in Beihai City that year. 3 years later he graduated from Beihai Martial Arts University and joined the military. Later he served in the Tianese military division. He died on the battlefield in the Southern War Zone on August 334 at the age of 37. Never married. Highest military rank, lieutenant. Battle merit, obtained first-class battle merit 3 times. Second-class merit 5 times. Third-class merit 12 times. No outstanding contributions. That is to say, I will die at the age of 37, dying in a battlefield with foreign beasts. I will only ever be a level 4 martial artist, according to my historical evaluation. At the bottom of the profile there was another character history rating, which was marked 2 stars. It corresponded exactly to Lu Sheng's level 2 authority in the Fireseed repository. Lu Sheng took a deep breath and his eyes became incomparably complicated. It was hard for him not to believe that this was the future he was about to face, because the Lu Sheng on the profile had the exact same life path as he did until he was 18. Even the sudden surge in strength more than 200 days before the college entrance examination was recorded. In front of the heft of history, his advancement from a mediocre talent to genius did not even cause a ripple to it. To be precise, even after the metamorphosis, the huge Fireseed repository did not even consider him a genius. Because in the world's 10,000 years of history, genius 100, no 1,000 times better than him, the ones that could be considered geniuses were simply far too many to count. Leaving a legacy that was remembered throughout eras, eons, and even ages to come. Those legends were only few and far between. Immediately after that, Lu Sheng checked the data on all the people he was familiar with. As a result, he found that except for his sister, Lu Qinghe, no one had reached 1 star. Majority of them had only managed to reach half star, or there were even some who were without any stars in their evaluation rating. Lu Sheng guessed that his 2-star rating was perhaps all due to his joining the military, his subsequent battle merits there, and his final sacrifice on the battlefield. After all, his sacrifice could also be considered a service to humanity. It's not exactly the same, Lu Sheng began to mutter to himself. The information says that my performance in the coming college entrance examinations will be with a blood chi value of 2.012 and a combat power index of 257. I'll score an actual combat assessment. I'd rank 23rd and enter the Beihai Martial Arts University. If I discount the dream world and my current rate of increment by practicing both the body refinement technique and the breathing technique, and also the other available boost I get, then one can consider it normal to achieve the result mentioned above if they practiced for more than 200 days. However, if I consider the cultivation and gains I've made in the dream world, then my actual digits should be far ahead from the ones shown in the data. Lu Sheng's eyes suddenly burst out with 2 intense sharp auras. More than 200 days of cultivation, more than 200 days inside the dream world, more than 200 days of gains and accomplishments. I don't believe I'll only make so little progress after all that. How can I, Lu Sheng, be only rank 23 in the entire city? My rank should be included in the ranks of the entire country. My name should resound within the minds of many people all around. My future, Lu Sheng clenched his fist fiercely, will amount more than that. Since it's the future, it can be changed. My own future, and as well the entire human civilization's future can be changed. If human civilization will perish in the future, then I, Lu Sheng, will be the one to change history and save the day. Lu Sheng looked at the words Fire Seed Repository flashing blue on the screen of his optical mind and spoke calmly but with certainty. I am the spark that will start a conflagration. At this moment, the disillusionment, confusion, and disappointment in Lu Sheng's heart were swept away, replaced by an unprecedented determination and confidence. His temperament underwent a new metamorphosis, and there seemed to be flames burning in his eyes. The path of the martial arts should be a courageous one. If you're faced with a desperate situation, then amidst all the chaos create a path for life and hope. This was Lu Sheng's belief. Little Saint, how come you didn't change your school uniform? Don't you need to go to school today? Zheng Yufan placed a pot of breakfast on the table, and curiously asked him, seeing him wear his casual clothes to the dining table. Lu Sheng casually picked up a meat bun and nodded. Yes, the teacher said I can choose to study on my own at home in the future. There's still such a thing, Zheng Yufan muttered suspiciously, but she didn't have the energy to think much about it as she was working several odd jobs at the same time and had to rush to work after breakfast, so she didn't ask more questions. Lu Qinghe habitually wanted to open her mouth and retort with something like, how come I've not heard of this new rule in school recently, but she looked at the Lu Sheng's dark eyes, and she swallowed back those words. This guy, Lu Qinghe took a bite out of the bun in her hand. The recent changes in Lu Sheng were getting more eye-catching, and he no longer looked his mediocre and timid self from before. Previously, she only felt that Lu Sheng had become somewhat deep and mysterious. But today, Lu Sheng gave her the feeling akin to a mountain, a piece of iron, a fire. Sitting next to Lu Sheng, she even had a kind of oppressive feeling that she couldn't breathe. This feeling was too oppressive. Lu Sheng did not notice Lu Qinghe's strangeness. He quickly ate breakfast and then went straight to his room to practice the body refining technique. After the 4th cycle of body refining, Lu Sheng's cell phone rang. It was an unfamiliar number. Lu Sheng, your scholarship will be handed out. Come down to school this afternoon to get collect it. Unsurprisingly, it was Zhong Zhenqiuo's call. Got it, Mr. Zhong. By the way, why didn't you come to class today? Didn't I say that the school had to meet and discuss your school hours? Thanks to your request to keep it hidden from your parents, I had to ask your classmates for your phone number. Teacher Zhong, I don't have much time, so I can't waste my time anymore. Ignoring whether Zhong Zhenqiuo on the other end of the phone could understand his words or not, Lu Sheng hung up the phone. Since returning from the dream world last night, Lu Sheng's mentality had completely changed. Before that, Lu Sheng was still carefully hiding his strength, not daring to expose too much, not daring to let too many people know. Before that, Lu Sheng was very careful in keeping his strength hidden, and did not dare to expose too much of secrets, lest too many people come to know. He had to account many factors before acting, hiding things from his family. But Lu Sheng no longer cared about stuff like that. He want to be sharp, he want to shock the next person. Only by showing more talent could he get more resources. He needed to rush to the top as quickly as possible, and then look for ways to change the future. Not even for a moment could not afford to wait. In addition to that, Lu Sheng also wanted to use this to verify an idea in his mind. Lu Sheng repeatedly practiced the body refining technique, paired with the breathing technique over and over again. The purpose was to finish squeezing his energy as fast as possible, create a sense of exhaustion, and then enter the dream world. When Lu Sheng finished practicing the body refining technique for the 27th time, he was finally so tired that he fell limp on the ground, not even willing to move his little finger. Sleep struck him and he gradually fell asleep. When he opened his eyes, he was still in the same place he left yesterday, with the optical mind in front of him. Lu Sheng skillfully operated the optical mind, and then gave the command. Pull up all cultivation methods, perceptions, notes related to martial arts that fall within my authority, querying in progress. Very quickly, a huge amount of information appeared in front of Lu Sheng's eyes. Densely packed, all of them were related to martial arts. It was too much. More than 10,000 years of accumulation, inspiration from countless people, wisdom. Even if Lu Sheng's authority was only level 2, the knowledge that could be obtained was massive. Lu Sheng thought about it and continued to command, screen data to the most suitable exercises and methods for a level 1 martial artist, and other related content. Screening in progress. The content was quickly screened out and only 3 pieces of data remained. Stellar Body Refining Technique Introduction, created by Wang He, a level 11 powerhouse of the World Martial Alliance, was later incorporated into the Fire Seed program. Natural Breathing Technique Introduction, created by Yang Yizhou, a level 11 powerhouse of the World Martial Alliance, was later incorporated into the Fire Seed program. Crystal Contemplation Technique Introduction, created by Duan Yifeng, a level 11 powerhouse of the World Martial Alliance, was later incorporated into the Fire Seed program. The techniques each had a flashier name than the other, but the information on the creators was what made Lu Sheng's eyes jump about wildly. Level 11 martial arts powerhouses. Nowadays, the world's strongest martial artists are only at the level 9, but here, in front of Lu Sheng, hovered 3 legacies of level 11 masters. Although all of them were just introductory chapters, their value was so great that it was difficult to put in words. Lu Sheng noticed that all 3 techniques were marked with the words incorporated into the Fire Seed project. Thinking back to the prompt of Fire Seed program initiated, when he opened the database yesterday, Lu Sheng seemed to understand the meaning of the Fire Seed project. Humanity's strongest should have predicted the ultimate fate of our race. Since they could do nothing to change their fates, they could compile the essence of their legacies expecting someone to come find it long after they were gone and carry this fire. Lu Sheng couldn't help but sigh. Unfortunately for them, they couldn't have imagined that the one who picked up the fire was not their progeny but an ancestor who lived long before them. Lu Sheng looked at the 3 techniques, thought about it, and spoke. Pull up the left-out constituent parts of these 3 methods. Insufficient authority. Query failed. Please increase access authority. Sure enough, the Fire Seed repository was uncompromisingly a supreme treasure trove. But apparently, opening this treasure trove also required one to fulfill certain conditions. The condition was sufficient access authority, and access authority, in turn, was closely related to the visitor's strength, achievement, fame, contribution, and so on. Lu Sheng did not continue to try, but instead focused his attention on reading the 3 martial arts techniques in front of him. As the crystallization of the effort of top level 11 powerhouses, Lu Sheng went over the techniques word by word, fearing to miss out even a single word. Soon, he finished reading all 3 martial arts techniques and a deep look of shock took over his eyes. Although he hadn't started formally practicing yet, he was already surprised by the magnificent and majestic, heavenly concepts in the methods. The stellar body refining technique sets up the human body as a miniature universe. When practiced to the depths, the technique would transform muscle density would reach an extremely terrifying level. give an unimaginable potential for strength and defense. BQV would skyrocket and would blaze like a river of stars. The natural breathing technique, when practiced in conjunction with any martial arts technique, will allow the cultivation progress of the technique to skyrocket. Moreover, the natural breathing technique can allow martial artists to enter a state of celestial unity, which has incomparable benefits to the advancement of one's martial arts realm. The crystal contemplation technique, which purifies the mind and strengthens the will, involves the most mysterious part of spiritual power in martial arts cultivation. These three martial arts techniques with different focuses were selected by the optical mind as the most suitable supreme martial arts techniques for a level 1 martial artist to build foundation A primer. Lu Sheng couldn't wait to get started. Although the results of cultivating in the dream world did not reflect in reality, but what he could do was practice first in here so that the process in reality would go much faster. The first thing Lu Sheng practiced was the stellar body refining technique and the natural breathing technique. Despite being just the introductory parts of the techniques, the tier of these two techniques was too high. Without the enhancement in cognitive skills like him, other level 1 martial artist with his a base similar to his would struggle to get started with them even after half a day's try. When Lu Sheng was done emulating the final move from the stellar body refining technique, his whole body immediately trembled uncontrollably like he was given an electric shock. The incomparably strong pain and numbness swept through every corner of Lu Sheng's entire body like a raging tide in the sea. Even the muscles and meridians located at the tip of the little finger were stimulated and exercised. This painful feeling lasted for more than half an hour before it gradually diminished, followed by an unparalleled sense of relief. Lu Sheng was so immersed in the intense pleasure of cultivation that his soul seemed sublimated and felt like it had gone through some out-of-the-body experience. If the effect the body refining technique he was practicing before was a 1, then the effect of the stellar body refining technique in addition to the natural breathing technique was a 1000 or even higher. And the effect of the body refining technique, the 24 basic forms, that he had been practicing even before was completely negligible compared to this. It was simply no better than regular radio gymnastics. Just after a single set of exercise, Lu Sheng went completely limp and slumped on the ground, unable to move a muscle. Taking advantage of his downtime, Lu Sheng began to try to practice the crystal contemplation technique. The concept of the crystal contemplation technique was wonderful and mysterious. Its first step was for the practitioner to visualize a human form in his mind, a human form carved entirely out of crystal. This crystal human form would be full of impurities initially, and then with the breath, little by little, all impurities are removed, and finally realize a spotless form. Although Lu Sheng did not understand much about the concept and effect taught by the crystal contemplation technique, he knew that spiritual will was very important to martial arts cultivation. A martial artist with a strong will and no distracting thoughts and a firm will would far exceed a martial artist with a lax will and mired with desires, both in terms of combat power and cultivation speed. That is why there have always been many people who practice hard work in the martial arts world. However, although the crystal contemplation technique is magical, the difficulty in cultivating it is also very high. Even with the assistance of the optical mind, which helped him build a 3-dimension crystal humanoid representation of Lu Sheng, he still couldn't manage to construct one on his own. He was making slow progress, and then chose to wake up. It stinks. When Lu Sheng awoke, he immediately noticed a strong fishy odor. He got up and found that his entire body was covered in black and oily sludge. The smell was coming from this sludge. Although I only practiced the stellar body refining technique in the dream world, some effects were still transmitted to reality. It's like a normal person having a dream about something sad, and then following it up with reality, with tears. Additionally, it was like how if one were to dream of something extremely frightening, one would then experience nervous twitching in reality. This is the instinctive response produced by the brain to stimulate the muscles. And such an exaggerated effect was produced solely from instinct, which made Lu Sheng feel that he had still underestimated the combined effect of the two phases of the stellar body refining technique and the natural breathing technique. After figuring out the reason, Lu Sheng hurriedly went to take a shower. My BQV should have increased again, just that I do not know by how much. After walking out of the bathroom with damp hair, Lu Sheng looked up at the wall clock and thought, it's about time to go to school. Next time, At least say hello to me first. After giving Lu Sheng a bank card, Zhong Zhenqiu reprimanded him with a bit of dissatisfaction. I understand, Teacher Zhong. Though he wanted to say something more, when he saw Lu Sheng's calm demeanor, he closed his mouth again. Go go go. From now just make sure to come to school at least once a week to report. Zhong Zhenqiu waved his hand helplessly. Yes. Lu Sheng put his card away and then turned around and left. Lu Sheng's departure back gave Zhong Zhenqiu's heart a strange feeling. If he had to describe it, he would say that the Lu Sheng from before was like an open book, or just someone he could see through. But now, he felt Lu Sheng was inscrutable, someone he couldn't figure out at all. And this change took place all in a span of a single day. Zhong Zhenqiu shook his head. It was better to not dwell over things he couldn't understand. Finally, I have some money on me. After walking out of the office, Lu Sheng felt a little more at ease for the first time in a while. He could not directly buy supplements with this money. That would be a total waste. The best way was to buy the ingredients and mix it by himself to make the supplements he wanted. The Fireseed repository had several kinds of tonic and medicinal formulas that Lu Sheng could use. Of course, though there were various options available after the optic mind screened it out for him, but in the end the kind that would be suitable for the current Lu Sheng would need further screening. To be honest, the main parameter for screening this time was the money. Lu Sheng found an internet cafe near school to continue his search on the internet. One couldn't say how Zhong Zhenqiu would react looking at his favorite student turn around and enter an internet cafe after asking to free his schedule of all classes during school hours. Providing a wide range of products and services is the company's main business. As such, the internet cafe was full of smoke. Lu Sheng casually navigated through the smoke and found himself a seat and searched for the information about the formulas and ingredients he had in mind. The main criterion was still the price. Once he found something, he'd calculate the cost for each ingredient. He made a cost-performance comparison to find the most suitable ingredient that fell within his budget. Soon, Lu Sheng identified two kinds of tonic pills suited to him: spiritual muscle and blood strengthening soup, and marrow nourishing pill. The ingredients needed for this too were readily available in the market, and it wasn't all that expensive, falling right in Lu Sheng's budget. The effect of the marrow nourishing pill was a little better, but he knew that for it to be effective, he required the ones that were freshly picked, within a few hours. And the herb did not originate from Beihai City. Then I'll have to choose the spiritual muscle and blood strengthening soup. Just so it happens that the preparation of spiritual muscle and blood strengthening soup is also relatively simple and suitable for a novice like me. Lu Sheng made up his mind. Now there was only one problem left for him to consider. Where do I prepare the soup? Even simple tonics require professional utensils. A smidgen difference in the heat and dosage, the effect may spoil for worse. It isn't practical to acquire a set for myself. The money I have would surely not be enough. It is better if I rent it from someone. Lu Sheng was a bit distressed. Similar to this kind of place where you can mix drugs, drug institutes, or larger pharmacies. Pharmaceutical companies should have. There should be institutions like this that are equipped to prepare medicines, conduct drug research, or larger pharmacies, and pharmaceutical companies. But the question is, why would they rent it to you? Various pharmaceutical companies have commercial secrets in the mixing room. Forgetting about borrowing it for private use, how could people be allowed in? Casually? Forget it. I'll buy all the herbs needed for spiritual muscle and blood strengthening soup, and then think about the rest. Sir, are you serious? This is impossible. Seeing the pharmacist's face turn black in front of him, Lu Sheng got up and left. That's the seventh establishment. This isn't realistic. Lu Sheng, who had just come out of the pharmacy, sighed sadly, his face displaying emotions of helplessness. He had already bought all the herbs needed for the spiritual muscle and blood strengthening soup, and had even bought several more than what was needed. Because the money in the card given to him by Zhong Zhenqiu was not 30,000, but a whole 80,000. Lu Sheng thought that the extra 50,000 was from Zhong Zhenqiu, a private sponsorship from him. The process of renting a mixing room turned out to be a very complicated affair. Lu Sheng went to 7 pharmaceutical companies, and they all turned him down. If this does not work out, I can only buy some rudimentary equipment online and try. Lu Sheng looked at the 8th pharmacy that appeared in his field of vision, and thought to himself, This pharmacy had a signboard saying Xing Shan Tang hanging in front of it. Tien, Xing Shan Tang translates to the Hall of Good Deeds / Doing Good. It was quite rare to run into a store with such a name in Beihe City. It was uncommon here. Lu Sheng straightened his clothes and stepped in. The pharmacy is not big. There are some cabinets with medicines on display. There was a young man in a white coat playing on his phone while he sat behind the counter. When he heard the sounds of Lu Sheng entering, the youth lifted his head to look at him, and then lowered it again. You can take a look around and find what you want, come back here to bill it. At the end, as if he forget to mention it, he added, don't even think of stealing anything and running. The store is monitored, and the pictures are of a good quality. After saying that, the youth began to focus on the phone again. Lu Sheng's eyes flickered for a moment. From the state of the store, it did not seem the store was running a profitable business. Regardless of which pharmacy he entered before, the salesman inside, even if they had a bad attitude, would politely come up to ask him a question and find out what he needed. The storekeeper at this store, on the other hand, simply ignored him, not wanting to do business at all. How can a store like this boom? Of course, it wasn't his concern. Lu Sheng approached the counter and reached out to press the phone in the youth's hand. You want to die? The youth was about to get angry when he moved his eyes away from the phone. But as soon as he met Lu Sheng's eyes and felt the compelling aura emanating from him, he softened down again. In seconds. What do you want? The youth took 2 steps back quickly, looking at Lu Sheng with some fear, his eyes glancing at the phone pressed under Lu Sheng's hand from time to time. Lu Sheng calmly said, I ask you one thing. Does your pharmacy have its own mixing room? What about it? So what if we do or not? Aren't you here to buy medicine? The youth said quickly. Lu Sheng stretched out a finger and lightly tapped the glass counter and said indifferently, if there is, I would like to propose a business deal. 5 minutes later, Lu Sheng followed the youth to the door of a room behind the pharmacy. The youth's expression seemed a bit nervous. He repeatedly tried to confirm with Lu Sheng, you've agreed to pay 200 yuan an hour. Even if you use it for less than an hour, it will still be counted as an hour and charged correspondingly. And at most, I can let you use it for 3 hours, after 3 hours. Also, you have to pay the 200 yuan upfront. Okay. Lu Sheng very dryly took out 200 yuan and handed it to the youth. The youth lit up at the sight of money. He took the money and quickly stuffed it into his pocket, then pulled out a key, opened the door and instructed Lu Sheng, okay, go in. But be careful as to not break anything, or you will have to pay for it. I know. Lu Sheng walked straight into the room. Behind him, the youth acted as if nothing had happened and quickly returned to the store, but his face was glowing with indiscernible joy. There is such a good thing in the world? It's like I got the money for doing nothing. Just so that I can delete the surveillance footage. Lu Sheng patrolled the room. His eyes showed a look of satisfaction. The mixing room was not that big, but it was stocked with all the necessary equipments, enough for him to work with. It could be observed that the pharmacist here at Xing Shan Tang cherished all the equipment and used them from time to time from the way each and every equipment was spotlessly cleaned. Lu Sheng did not waste time. The young man who had agreed to rent his mixing room obviously had little say in the matter and was sneaky. He had to achieve his purpose as soon as possible to save the people from the Xing Shan Tang from coming back and adding to the trouble. Spiritual muscle and blood strengthening soup. Lu Sheng put on the white pharmacist's uniform, put on the mask, and began to follow the instructions of the spiritual muscle and blood strengthening soup's prescription to handle the herbs in it piece by piece. Compared to the final mix, this step was the most difficult and important. He was glad that the preparation of spiritual muscle and blood strengthening soup is not difficult at all, it is just a little more tedious than an ordinary chemical experiment. Grumble, grumble, grumble. Lu Sheng carefully poured the boiling medicinal soup into a flask. I didn't think it would go well the first time. Lu Sheng looked at the medicinal soup inside the flask that gradually cooled down and took on a beautiful light pink color, and a bit of joy rose in his heart. In the end the soup was considered successful, though he'd still have to taste and feel the effect to be sure. Lu Sheng pulled off the mask and directly poured all the medicinal soup inside the flask into his mouth. The soup went down the throat and into the stomach. Lu Sheng did not even taste what it was. He stood still and waited for a few seconds. He felt a hot stream coming out of his body, and in a few breaths it went throughout his body. Every inch of muscle cell in Lu Sheng's body was greedily absorbing the heat flow. It was like an arid suddenly being watered, or a sponge that had been exposed to the sun being thrown into water. Lu Sheng's body steamed up a trace of white gas, his BQV surged, and his whole person was filled with the feeling of being full. 10 minutes later, this feeling gradually weakened and eventually disappeared. Lu Sheng's eyes stared brightly at the flask in his hand. He knew that he had succeeded. The effect of spiritual muscle and blood-strengthening soup was even better than he expected, almost more than 10 times that of the blood-nourishing tonic he had taken before. And it cost twice lesser than the blood-nourishing tonic. Lu Sheng also felt that his muscles had become slightly tougher and firmer. This was as stated in the prescription. Since spiritual muscle and blood-strengthening soup was called what it was, it naturally had more than just one effect of strengthening blood. While strengthening blood, it could also increase the density of skin on the person who ingested it, reduce pores, whiten and moisturize the skin, etc., and other additional effects. The future tonic is a bull, more than 10,000 years of wisdom crystallization. Just a little out, can throw off the present 18 streets. This futuristic supplement sure is good. More than 10,000 years of wisdom crystallized, just a bit of that knowledge is enough to shake the foundations off the modern science. Lu Sheng couldn't help but sigh. He had yet to fully digest the soup, the remnant effects still remaining in his body. He'd have to go through the stellar body refining technique to employ all of it. Of course, he couldn't do it now. The most important task was to mix the herbs quickly. With one successful experience, Lu Sheng's subsequent mixing went exceptionally smooth. Bang bang bang! Lu Sheng opened the door, his face expressionless. Didn't you say you won't disturb me while I was in? My boss will be back soon, come out quickly. The youth at the door had a nervous expression on his face, as he kept urging. Lu Sheng looked astonished and did not speak. He quickly cleaned up the mixing room, took the blended soup, and walked out of the room. Although it was much earlier than the agreed upon time, but the good thing was that he had successfully made 12 portions of the spirit muscle and blood strengthening soup. Lu Sheng gave the youth another 200 yuan, and then left the pharmacy. Before he left, the youth had given his number to Lu Sheng and asked to give him a call if he wanted to use the services next time as well. It seemed that he intended to develop a long-standing business relationship with Lu Sheng. Lu Sheng was carrying 12 portions of the soup, but his footsteps were smooth and swift. With the supplement now in hand, he wanted to quickly focus on cultivation and improving himself. He Ling Su dragged her tired body out of the car. He Ling Su was only 20 years old, with a delicate figure and a soft face. She should have been at the age to enjoy life to the fullest like a flower, but she took up the family responsibility early on in life. The He family pharmaceutical was one of rich heritage and did it for a living for several generations. The ancestor of the He's was once counted as one of the 5 famous master pharmacists in Beihai City, but after the store got passed down to her father's generation, the business fell. During He Ling Su's grandfather's generation, the He family was still prosperous with branches of Xing Shantang spanning across several provinces, adding up over 100 pharmaceutical stores to their name. Now only 2 stores in the Beihai City remained lingering. Martial arts is developing rapidly, and so is the medicine industry, which is intrinsically related to the martial arts cultivation. It undergoes changes and improves every single day, with old methods and science being purged and eliminated. The reason for the decline of my He family is that our concept is too conservative and old-fashioned, sticking to the old rules, not thinking about progress. I do not dare think about it. 100 years ago, when the martial arts tonics were prevalent, even when they couldn't afford them even after spending their monthly income on a blood-nourishing pill. The only way to save my family's current predicament is to push the boundaries and introduce the new. He Ling Su has been doing the same thing. During this period of time, she had been looking everywhere for a new supplementary tonic to use as a signature to save the He family's business. But half a year had gone by with little success to her name. Yesterday, she heard that an old pharmacist in the next city had developed a new tonic, so she rushed over there post-haste. As a result, halfway to the car, she received a phone call from the other side, telling her not to come, and that they had already found a good partner. He Ling Su returned empty-handed. "Miss He, you're back." As soon as she entered, the youth in white coat immediately took the initiative to greet her. He Ling Su was bored and didn't have time to pay attention to the other party, so she just nodded coldly. She had taken over the pharmacy for a while now, and naturally knew exactly how the storekeepers behaved in private. The storekeeper named Ma Fei was lazy, likes to desert at work, and sometimes steals the store's tonic medicine to sell. She has warned several times but refused to repent. The storekeeper named Ma Fei was lazy, liked to idle at work if not for the fact that she hadn't found a replacement for him. She would just straight ask him to leave. So beautiful, if only she could be my girlfriend. Ma Fei kept his eyes on He Lingsu's back until her back completely disappeared from sight before he turned back. He Lingsu has always been the goddess of Ma Fei's dreams. The reason Ma Fei stayed at Xing Shangtang and refused to leave was because he fantasized that it would be nice to be seen in earnest by He Lingsu one day. Although the pharmacy did not have good business, but even a malnourished camel was bigger than a horse. He also counted both his love and career to be satisfactory, both on the path to the peak of life. Although the chances of this happening are much smaller than the chances of winning the lottery, what if it did? The taste of rich people's ladies is difficult to say. It's hard to discern the tastes of rich ladies. Aren't all urban-themed web novels have a similar plot and protagonist? Ma Fei was lying on the counter imagining himself to be the protagonist when He Lingsu's figure appeared before his eyes. Miss He. Ma Fei stood up with a jolt, and quickly wiped off the saliva drooling out the corner of his mouth with his sleeve. Her face was like a block of cold ice, her face incomparably gloomy. Did you secretly bring someone into my tonic mixing room? No. Ma Fei hurriedly shook his head in denial. Looking at the other party's stammering, flickering eyes, He Lingsu was almost certain. Forget it, you don't have to come back to work tomorrow. He Lingsu said indifferently. Miss He, listen to my explanation. He Lingsu no longer paid attention to Ma Fei, she simply turned around and left. Her mood today was already pretty bad, and then she had to run into this kind of thing. Her emotions nearly exploded. He Lingsu usually did research on new drugs in the mixing room when she had nothing else to do, so she knew everything in there, like the back of her hand. Just now, when she walked into the mixing room, she found that many of the equipments and instruments had been moved from their place. Even her lab coat emitted the strong scent of man from the inside. Bastard! Pisses me off. He Lingsu threw a tantrum as she cleaned up. She used tweezers to pick up the pharmacist's uniform that had been worn by someone and threw it directly into the trash. All the equipments have to be sanitized, the table has to be cleaned with disinfectant again. He Lingsu was a neat freak, if not for her current circumstance. She'd even have gone ahead and disposed of everything and brought new equipments. Only noticed that a used flask was broken on the ground. There was still some light pink liquid left in the bottle. It's disgusting. He Lingsu was full of disgust. After pick up the flask from the ground and look at the flask. I must really be bewitched. He Lingsu laughed at herself. Recently, her mind was occupied with thoughts of new drugs and tonics that she even wanted to pick up the unknown liquid from the ground to study its contents. That said, He Lingsu used its finger to taste the light pink liquid in the broken flask. This is fuck. I'm really unlucky to have run into this, Ma Fei cried and was packing up his things, ready to collect his things and leave. The thought of not having a chance to see his goddess tomorrow filled Ma Fei with regret. I should have been swayed by a couple of hundreds that brat offered me. Now it's got me good. Ma Fei carried his things out of the Xing Shantang and looked back with fondness in his eyes. God, can you just give me a chance to take one final look at my goddess? Ma Fei sighed in his heart. The next moment, a miracle happened. He Lingsu really appeared in front of him. Not only that, He Lingsu was also running towards him, her face filled with tension, anxiety, and urgency. Ma Fei, where are you? Damn, it can't be that you already left. Holy shit, Ma Fei was stunned. His fantasy had came true? Those web novel protagonists, those episodes, only seen in novels, seemed to have crossed to real life and was running towards him, step by step. A great joy and excitement rose in Ma Fei's heart, and he hurriedly spoke, Little He Lingsu, I'm here. He Lingsu saw Ma Fei standing in the doorway with an excited face waving at her, and suddenly her eyes lit up. You haven't left yet. He Lingsu rushed out, grabbed Ma Fei's clothes and eagerly said, just in time, I have something very important to ask you. Ask away. As long as it's something I know I'll tell you. Susu. Ma Fei's face was overflowing with excitement and happiness. He Lingsa frowned when she heard Ma Fei address her, but she didn't have time to care about that at this moment. What kind of person did you bring into the mixing room today? I want to see him immediately. Huh. Ma Fei froze. This did not seem to follow the plot in web novels or the scenes that he imagined. Are you deaf? I said I want to see the man you brought into the mixing room today. If you can help me find him, I guarantee that not only will I let you continue working here, I'll also double your salary. Oh. Ma Fei woke up from his daydream and took out his phone. I have his contact information. Give it to me. He Lingso was anxious as hell in her heart. What if she was delayed by a minute? It was no surprise that she was reacting the way she was. It was mainly because the test result on the residue had come, and it was simply way too amazing. The blood replenishment effect exceeds more than 10 times than those tonics that available for less than 100,000 yuan on the market. Notwithstanding that, it also has additional properties of firming, muscle building and other effects. Not just that, according to the analysis, the main components involved in this residual liquid are all common herbs available on the market. By preliminary estimates, the manufacturing cost of this liquid should not exceed more than 5,000 yuan. The most critical aspect of this liquid is that there is not tonic on the market that overlaps or is similar to it. In other words, this is a new product, a new type of tonic that has just been developed, yet to be released on the market. All factors combined, He Lingso seems to see an unprecedented business opportunity beckoning to her. The He family has hope yet.